lighting's really shit, but we'll go for it anyway. Morning, cup of tea, coffee even, on this beautiful Tuesday morning. I don't usually come on this early, but something popped into my head and I thought it would be a really good thing to share with you. Now, I saw a post on Instagram, which I'm actually going to share and write some comments on my Instagram account at the Sam Norris later on, which was called the worst investment you can make. I wouldn't quite go as far as that in describing this particular type of investment, but I think that's probably down more to me being from the UK rather than the US, and understanding what the cultural differences are. But Mr. Cardone, who for those that are not in the know is a huge multi-millionaire property developer, property investor over in the States, and like I said, the property culture over there and the financing culture, etc., is very, very different to where it is in the UK. So he is basically suggesting that owning your own main residence is a ridiculous investment and something that you shouldn't do. It's something that I kind of agree with to an extent. I still have aspirations to own my own residence, but again, I think there's this kind of British ownership mentality that's sort of ingrained in our minds, and I think that's maybe part of it. Maybe that's a mindset I need to get out of. I also completely understand that if I want to actually invest in property and buy properties that I need buy-to-let mortgages for, having a main residence is usually a prerequisite to getting the best possible finance in order to do that. So I fully understand that that is the way to go when it comes to that. But basically, the point that Grant Cardone is making is that a lot of people believe that their home is their greatest asset, and that is probably one of the biggest, fallacies out there. It is not your greatest asset. Now, when I get my clients, one of the first things I get my clients to do is, if they own property already, is to send me a spreadsheet, and I have a template that I sent to them on an Excel spreadsheet that they fill out with all of their property details of the portfolio that they currently have, so that I know what I've got to play with, I know what their situation is, I know how experienced they are, and I can also look at opportunities to restructure things for them, which is usually majorly important and can save them some money as well, which is really, really helpful. Now, one of the first things that they do is that they will really proudly stick at the top of their of the spreadsheet, almost in bold, their number 1 Smith Street, £2 million, mortgage. This is my main residence. Blah, 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 blah. I might as well have like fireworks coming out of it, and they are usually very shocked when I send it back to them, because what I do is I make 2 very small changes, which completely changes the whole way in which this spreadsheet looks. And what I do is that I will I'll put a gap in between the main residence and the rest of the portfolio. I will make the totals only the assets and liabilities from the investment properties, and I will put in I will highlight the main residence in red. Now, when I do this, they're quite surprised, because they're like, well, why are you putting my house in red? That's not very fair. And I said to them, it's because your main residence is your greatest liability. Okay. No, I asked them these questions. Who pays your mortgage? You do. Who pays your utilities bills? You do. Who pays your council tax? You do. Even if you get debt free, those other 2, you're always going to pay them. They're always going to be expensive bills that are going to be recurring for the rest of your life. And yes, you might say, well, look, if I rent a place, then I'll be paying these. But if you live in a flat, a lot of the time you don't pay service charge if you're renting, whereas you might do ground rent and service charge if you buy. But essentially, there are lots of costs. Upkeep, all this kind of stuff is always going to be something that you're going to be ultimately responsible for. And unless you rent out a room or something that covers those costs, it is always going to be your greatest liability. Now, if I go back to 2012, December, I bought a flat in St Albans, which is in Hertfordshire. It's probably like one of the nicer places in Hertfordshire is St Albans. I bought a place for £195,000. This was a 1-bedroom flat It was right by the station. It was perfectly suited for exactly what I wanted. Me and my then partner, were paying quite a high mortgage. We actually did the Help to Buy scheme because this opportunity came back really quickly, so we just sort of jumped on it. And 195,000 I bargained down from 200 for a 1-bedroom flat at the end of 2012. When we came to sell it in 2015, we actually got 275,000 for it. And I tell people this story and they go, wow, that's amazing. You made so much money on that. And I tell them that was blind luck. 100% blind luck. I was so lucky that happened. Number one, I was lucky that I bought right in the sort of the midst of a down market. Okay, if I bought maybe a year beforehand, I might have got it a little bit cheaper than that, but still got it really, really cheap considering. The second was there was an idiot out there that bought that flat for £275 when it was not 275,000, I should say, when it was nowhere near worth that amount. 100% wasn't worth that amount. So, when people hear that story, they kind of get the misconception that I think, I made loads of money. I did make loads of money. It was amazing. It was great. But that is a one-off. That does not happen unless because you cannot predict the future when it comes to property, okay? Who would have predicted that the country would have voted to leave the EU and, all the properties that have been problems that have ensued in property since then? If you had bought in just before the referendum, you would probably have envisaged that your property would go up in value in the next 2-3 years. That may not have been the case, and Brexit and the pound and investment in the UK going down may have had an effect on that. You can't predict that. I was just fortunate that I bought at the right time and I sold at the right time, and I made a decent amount of money. As it turns out, I probably should have used that money and gone off and bought myself a couple of nice little rental properties that would have made me a nice bit of money during the course of the years that followed, and by now maybe that would have grown even more. But unfortunately, I say unfortunately, I used that money to travel around the world, and I don't regret it. It was a great thing that I did. It opened my mind, had a lot of clarity, and I came back very, very focused on what I needed to do to make sure that my life was going to be better from here on in. But the sort of the summary, I suppose, of what this video is all about is just getting that mindset of what is a good asset and what is maybe a bad asset. Not necessarily a bad asset, but considering that your home or certain assets to be great assets. Certain cars, for example, people see it as an asset. I bought myself a new Land Rover Discovery. Well, that's depreciating. With every month that goes by, that's worth less and less and less. So, is that an asset? You actually also probably got finance attached to that, which is maybe not going down at the same rate. So you probably might even be in negative equity within a couple of years of owning that vehicle. So maybe leasing it would have been a better opportunity, a better idea. Who knows? But your main residence being something that genuinely is. I genuinely do not believe that your main residence is an asset in any way, shape or form. Yes, you can sell it on and you can take some money out of it or whatever, and you can use the equity in that property, but that's where the asset lies. It's not the asset itself. Unless you're putting it to good use, it is literally just a block of bricks and mortar that you live in, and you can rent that, and maybe that would be a better option for you. Like I said, for a lot of my clients, obviously being UK based, owning their own main residence is a sort of a prerequisite for getting the best terms on buy-to-let mortgages when they want to expand a rental portfolio. So maybe that's not necessarily the best course of action. There are opportunities to buy when you don't own, but certainly your options are limited. So for me, that's one of the only reasons why I would want to buy a property rather than rent for the rest of my life. I have personally had some pretty rubbish experience with landlords, which is maybe another reason, so that I'm just more in control. But I do that. So they're the reasons why I would buy, is to be in control, so I don't have to worry about a landlord. I can make changes to the property as I see fit for my own aesthetics, and that could one day help me sell that property easier. I'm just basically a lot more in control of the whole situation, and as and when I come to start building my own property portfolio, I know that I'm going to have access to a larger pool of lenders if I have my own main residence, and they really are the only reasons. So those are the reasons, not that it's an asset. I don't see it as an asset. I see it as something that I need to help me with other things, and to basically avoid having to deal with shit landlords, which is something that I've had to do a few times in my life already, which is not fantastic. So that's really the takeaway from this, and the summary, as I said, is basically, I don't believe that your own main residence is an asset. If you are one of my clients and you're watching, and I ask you to send me a copy of your spreadsheet, your portfolio spreadsheet, feel free to put your main residence on there, but do not include it in all the totals, because it is separate from that. It's a property that you own, but it's not part of your property portfolio, unless you decide that you do want to rent it out at some point in the future, and that's something altogether completely different. So, as I said, I saw that post from Grant Cardone. If you want to see the post and read my comments on it, you can check it out later on today on my Instagram account at the Sam Norris, and you can see what I think about that on there. But as I saw that this morning, I thought it was a good opportunity in the dark, it seems, to jump on and just discuss that with you. So whatever you're going to do for the rest of the day, enjoy yourself, be successful, work hard, and I'll catch you on the next video. Any questions that you've got, of course, please do send me a direct message. I love hearing from you guys and love answering any questions that you've got. And if there's anyone that is embarking on, building a property portfolio themselves, and you think this video might be really handy for them, do feel free to share and tag them in it, and I'll be eternally grateful. Thanks very much. Catch you next time. Bye.